Today, I want to tell you the story of this herd. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but horses are very expensive. And so growing up, I always had to borrow other people's horses, and I did a lot of work at different barns and at camps for a long time. And so after I graduated college, about 8 months or so later, I was really missing interacting with horses, being around horses, just their smell, just everything about them. I was just really missing them. And so, on just a crazy whim, I got into contact with some people that I knew through Kitty's owner, and I ended up buying Eden. She was the very first horse that I ever bought, and I actually paid more for my dog than I did for her, which is kind of crazy. Soon after that, Kitty's mom moved to California, very sadly, and so I started taking care of Kitty and Eden. So I basically had two for the price of one horses for a while. They were in the same pasture, and they started to get to know each other a bit more when I started working with them, because they hung out with different groups of horses before that. And then when they learned that I was feeding them and working with them together, they became inseparable because, they got fed together, and they've been super good friends ever since. After some time, the boarding place where I had them at first was sold to become apartment complexes, and so I moved them to a place in Jinx, which was a lot closer to my home at the time. It has been a long-term dream of mine to be able to run an equine business that I now am so excited to be able to do. It's just still crazy to me how we got here. And a part of this is also being able to live at the house we live at now with 14 beautiful acres, and just my wonderful husband's support, being able to now live in this dream place. With our move and knowing that I was going to be able to start my business, I knew that I was going to need more horses. And so, luckily, I already follow rescue pages, which is probably not the smartest idea, but so far I haven't gone too crazy with it yet. But that is where I first saw Bucky, who used to be named Francis, and Bullet, who used to be named Tex. Watching their videos, I felt an instant connection to them, and I just knew that they were mine. And so in the same week we had to be moving out of our old house, we actually drove to Texas and went and got Bucky and Bullet, which was just insanity, but so worth it. The boys then went with Kitty and Eden for a few months to the Jinx boarding place until our house was ready. We were able to move them all here together. When we first got Bullet, he was so skinny and he didn't really trust people, but he was good to be around us and good to be pet still, as long as we brought him food. And he was very pushy because he needed food, and he needed about 100 or 2 pounds put on him, and so it was understandable. Bucky didn't trust us, and it takes a long time to earn his trust. It took a lot of repetition and kindness just to show him that we would never be horrible to him, that we would always show him kindness. And once I gained his trust, we have had just an insanely unbreakable bond ever since then. Shortly after we moved into our new home, we actually learned about Apollo and Atlas, who used to be Danny, and we went out and saw them, and we just decided they would be great additions to our herd, and so we brought them home to us in June as well. Being a part of this herd has changed every single one of these horses for the better. Atlas has way more friends, and he has really settled into himself, and he is just truly a giant love bug. And though at times it seems like he keeps himself away from the other herd, I think he just needs his alone time, and he is friends with every single one of the other horses. Apollo also gained more friends than just Atlas, and he really also learned how to submit and be kind to other horses because he was a little bit wild, and he has also settled into just being a giant love bug, and we love the mares for teaching him his respect and manners for everyone. Bullet gained back all of the weight that he had lost, and he has become so much more trusting, so much more kind. He has learned that he will always be fed here, and it is so fun to watch him with the herd because he is almost always right next to either Kitty or Eden, and whenever he's not, he's usually hanging out with Bucky or all the geldings together. Bucky and Bullet will always have each other because they survived death together. The impacts of this herd have been probably most traumatic for Bucky. When we first got him, he was so skittish and so unsure, but he truly has become a new horse when he realized that these were his horses, these were his friends. It really showed up one day, actually, whenever little Sebastian, who was a wild stallion who used to roam in this area, super long story, I'll tell you a different day probably about little Sebastian, but this mini stallion had chased Bucky, and Bucky had actually jumped over a neighbor's fence. And I pulled up all the horses when I noticed what was going on, but Bucky was trapped behind the neighbor's fence, and he was freaking out because he was not with his herd. And I went out and I broke open the fence to let him through, and he sprinted to be with his friends because he knew that's where he was safe. It turned out to be a beautiful little moment to realize that he really did feel at home here. Kitty herself has grown in her confidence and her skills. She is so happy to be second in command around here. She is aging so gracefully, and she loves having just every horse here be one of her friends. Eden has grown as well and come into her own. I see a huge difference in how she has acted at each of the boarding places, and she is for sure the most settled here. She loves seeing me every day. She loves my kids, and it's so fun to watch her be in charge of her own little piece of land. It is a joy to watch her watch over and protect her own little herd. We all need herds around us. It absolutely brings out the best in us, just as it has done for these 6 beautiful horses. Follow us to learn more about these amazing horses and to let us help you thrive. Restoration is here.